Calder walked through the quiet valley with a small toolkit on his back. The sun was low, making long shadows across the rocks and tall grass. He had been sent to this frontier world to repair old power stations, but the area felt too silent. No birds, no animals, nothing. His steps echoed alone. As he crossed a ridge, he heard something soft, a tiny shaky sound like someone crying. He stopped, listened again and followed the noise. It led him down a slope into a narrow clearing and there he froze. A young dragon girl sat beside a huge body lying on the ground. The girl was small, maybe 8 or 9 in human years, with violet scales and glowing silver eyes. She wiped her tears with trembling hands. The creature beside her was enormous, at least 20 meters long, with deep red scales. The dragon's chest rose and fell slowly as if every breath hurt. Calder stepped forward carefully. The girl noticed him immediately but did not run. Instead, she stood up and pointed at the giant dragon. "Please, help my mama," she whispered. Calder blinked. He had never seen a dragon this large up close. Her wings were folded tight, and her scales were cracked in many places. Some areas were burned, glowing faintly with blue heat. He felt the warmth even from several steps away. He knelt beside the girl so he would not seem tall or dangerous. "My name is Calder," he said softly. "What happened to her?" The girl shook her head. "Bad people hurt her. She tried to protect me. Then she fell asleep and will not wake up." Calder slowly approached the mother dragon. Each step made the ground shake a little beneath him. He reached out and placed his hand on her front leg. The scales were warm, far too warm. The burns were strange too, marked with perfect circles and sharp lines. Not natural. Not claws. Not fire. These were machine burns. Calder's chest tightened. Only old war technology could make marks like this, and that technology should have been destroyed years ago. The dragon girl watched him with wide eyes. "Can you save her?" He did not want to lie. "I will try." He took out a small scanner from his toolkit. The villagers had given him basic repair tools, not medical gear, but he could still learn something. When he scanned the burns, the device beeped and displayed patterns he recognized instantly, energy signatures from illegal hunter craft. Someone had attacked the mother dragon on purpose. Calder looked at the girl again. She hugged her tail and shook with fear. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she whispered. "Lyra," he said gently, "I need to check her breathing. You stay close but don't touch the burn parts." Lyra nodded and crouched beside him. Calder leaned near the dragon queen's snout. Her breath was slow and heavy as if the air itself hurt her. He checked the pulse on her neck. Still strong but fading a little with each minute. "She's fighting," Calder murmured. "She's strong. But she needs help soon." Lyra's voice trembled again. "Everyone in the village said she is dangerous. They said she cannot be helped." Calder looked at the villagers now gathering at the top of the hill. They whispered to each other, pointing at him and the giant dragon on the ground. Some shook their heads. Some looked afraid. Some looked like they wanted to leave immediately. He heard one alien mutter, "Why is a human touching that thing? It could wake up and burn us all." Calder ignored them. Their fear was loud, but Lyra's trust was louder. He opened his toolkit again and pulled out wires, small conductors and a tiny power cell. "I can stabilize her for now," he said. "Not cure her. But keep her alive." Lyra watched every motion with hope. Calder began attaching wires around the burned scales, creating a low-energy field to cool the wounds. He had used this trick on overheating engines, not living creatures, but it might work. Her scales vibrated softly as the field spread across her skin. Lyra gasped. She moved. The mother dragon's claws twitched slightly. Not much, but enough to show she could still hear the world. Calder exhaled with relief. Good. It means she still has strength. He saw the villagers approach slowly, staying far back in case the dragon woke fully. One of them, an older alien with gray skin, shouted, "Human! Leave that beast. You don't know what you're doing." Calder stood and faced them. "She's hurt. She didn't attack your village. She protected her daughter. She needs help." The old alien shook his head. "Dragons don't need help. Dragons bring trouble. If she wakes up angry, all of us will suffer." Lyra stepped forward, her small voice louder than before. "My mama is not dangerous. She is good. She saved me." But the villagers kept whispering fearfully. Calder looked at the mother dragon again. She needed more than his small tools could offer. She needed real healing equipment. And fast. He knelt beside Lyra. "I have to bring better tools from my camp," he said. "It's not far. I will run." Lyra grabbed his hand suddenly. Her scales were warm and shaking. "You will come back?" He met her silver eyes. "Yes, I promised." She looked down at her mother's giant body, then back at Calder. "Please hurry." Calder stood and took one final look at the huge dragon lying still on the ground. Her wings were cracked, her scales burned, her breath fading. But she was alive. And Lyra believed in him. That alone made him move fast. He tightened his toolkit and ran toward the valley path, his boots pounding against the dirt. The wind picked up around him as the sky dimmed, and a distant hum echoed far above, deep, mechanical, and familiar. Calder stopped for a moment and looked up. Something was moving in the clouds. Something he had hoped never to see again. He clenched his jaw. The mother dragon was not just wounded. She had been hunted. And the hunters might be coming back. He started running harder. Time was running out, and Lyra's mother was the only thing standing between the valley and whatever danger was hiding in the sky. Calder reached his small repair camp just before nightfall. The desert wind whipped around him, carrying dust and the faint scent of ozone. He quickly unpacked his tools and medical kits, thinking about the dragon queen lying unconscious in the valley below. He had never faced a creature like this, large, intelligent, and wounded by technology he barely understood, but he was a veteran. Human veterans survived impossible odds, and he intended to survive this too. Lyra appeared beside him suddenly, running across the rocks. Her violet scales glimmered faintly in the moonlight, and her silver eyes were full of hope and fear. "Did you bring help?" she asked, almost bouncing on her small claws. "I brought everything I could carry," Calder said. He set his toolkit down and opened a small portable medical scanner. "We can stabilize your mother here. She won't fully heal, but at least she will survive the night." Lyra nodded quickly and stepped closer to him. "Please, you have to save her." Her voice trembled, but there was no doubt in her eyes. She believed in him. Calder looked at her small, trusting face and nodded. "I promise, Lyra. I won't let anything happen to her." The valley below was quiet now. The villagers who had gathered earlier had retreated to the ridges, still murmuring about the danger of dragons. Calder ignored them. Their fear was loud, but he had learned long ago that fear did not solve problems. Action did. He set up the scanner and attached the thin energy lines to small patches on the Dragon Queen's scales. She twitched slightly as he adjusted the low-energy stabilizers. The burns glowed faintly blue, but Calder had seen worse during his service in human war zones. He focused carefully, connecting circuits, powering the devices and checking her vitals. Lyra stayed close, watching every movement. "Will she wake soon?" she asked. "Not yet," Calder said. "But she's strong. She's holding on. That's what matters." He checked the scanner again. The Dragon Queen's breathing was slow but steady. "The burns are old, but the energy is stabilizing. She won't burn herself or the valley for now." Lyra's tail curled around Calder's leg. "They said humans were weak. But you're helping her when no one else will." Calder smiled faintly. "Humans aren't weak," he said. "We survive by thinking, by planning, and by acting when it counts. That's what I'm doing now." He pulled out a small set of tools and began examining the strange burn patterns more closely. The lines were too precise to be natural. Machines had done this. Calder frowned. "These were made by hunters," he murmured. "They didn't want to kill her, just hurt her. They were sending a message." Lyra's eyes widened. "Message?" "Warning," Calder said softly. "Someone powerful wanted her hurt. Maybe more than hurt. But we will make sure she survives. I promise you." Lyra nodded again, more firmly this time. "I knew maybe that human would help," she whispered. "You're brave." Calder looked at her. "I've faced worse. I've seen humans survive against armies much stronger than themselves. Dragons are different, but bravery and focus work the same way. Don't worry." The night passed slowly. Calder worked carefully, using low-energy stabilizers, small cooling devices, and improvised patches made from his repair kits. Nothing in his human training fully prepared him for this, but veterans improvise. He had learned that survival often meant using what you had in ways no one expected. When the first light of dawn touched the valley, the Dragon Queen stirred slightly. Her eyes remained closed, but her chest rose and fell with a steadier rhythm. Calder let out a quiet breath. "See," he said to Lyra. "She's holding on." Lyra smiled faintly, though her eyes still reflected fear. "Will she wake soon?" "Soon," Calder said. "But she's in no danger right now. That's progress." He looked at the valley around them. The villagers were starting their day, still whispering about the Dragon Queen and the human who helped her. Calder ignored them. Their gossip and fear would not change anything. He checked his supplies. There were enough to keep the Dragon Queen stable for the day. But soon he would need better equipment. More advanced healing tools, stronger stabilizers, maybe even parts he could only find beyond this planet. For now he had done all he could. Lyra stayed close to him, her small hand resting on his arm. I think she trusts you already, she said softly. Calder smiled faintly. Good. Trust is important. She'll know I'm not a threat when she wakes. That will help her recover faster. Suddenly, a faint hum rose in the air. Calder looked toward the ridge. Distant ships, black and angular, were moving across the horizon. He frowned. Hunters, he said. They're back. Lyra's eyes widened and she clutched his arm. What do we do? Calder knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. We keep her safe, he said firmly. I promised. And I don't break promises. We will be ready for them. She nodded, trusting him completely. Calder knew the next steps would be difficult, maybe dangerous, but he had faced danger before. He had survived. And now he had a Dragon Queen and her daughter relying on him. I won't fail, he whispered to himself. Then he looked at Lyra. And neither will you. Stay close, watch and learn. Bravery isn't just for the strong, it's for those who act when it matters most. The sun rose over the valley, casting long shadows across the desert. Calder packed his tools carefully, preparing for the long day ahead. His promise to Lyra and her mother was clear in his mind. He would not fail. The veteran would protect the Dragon Queen. He would heal her. And the hunters, whoever they were, would learn that humans were not as weak as they believed. Calder tightened his pack, adjusted the stabilizer lines and turned to Lyra. Ready? He asked. She nodded, determination in her small eyes. Together they faced the valley, the unconscious dragon, and the unknown dangers approaching on the horizon. The veteran's promise was firm. They would survive. And he would make sure of it. The valley was quiet again, but Calder's instincts told him danger was near. He had kept the Dragon Queen stable overnight with improvised human devices, but the hum in the air now was different. It was sharper, closer, mechanical, and deliberate. He looked toward the horizon. Black shapes cut across the morning light, hunters returning faster and more organized than before. Lyra was beside him, small but alert. Her silver eyes widened. They're coming, she whispered, her voice trembling. Calder placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Yes, he said. But we can handle this. We just need a plan. The hunters descended carefully, scanning the valley floor with sensors. Their weapons glinted, built for precision, not brute force. Calder crouched behind a rock, gesturing for Lyra to stay low. They are looking for your mother, he murmured. We can't let them find her unprotected. Lyra nodded, wrapping her small arms around her knees. What do we do? Calder quickly explained. We slow them down. Create distractions. Buy time. Then I can finish stabilizing your mother so she can fight if she has to. Follow my lead. He pulled a few small devices from his pack, scraps of energy circuits and metal pieces he had salvaged the night before. They were primitive, but human ingenuity often worked better than powerful technology when used cleverly. He placed them along the valley floor, creating false heat signatures and low hums that would confuse the hunter's scanners. Lyra watched every move with fascination. You really know what you're doing, she said softly. Calder smiled faintly. Experience. Humans survive by thinking, not just fighting. Now stay close. The hunters landed, moving cautiously through the valley. Their scanners blinked across the terrain, but Calder's traps worked. False signals drew their attention to empty spaces, while he and Lyra stayed behind large boulders. Every step he had taught the little dragon girl counted. Suddenly, a scout robot moved too close to the Dragon Queen's resting place. Calder leapt forward, tossing a small smoke device from his kit. The smoke rose quickly, hiding the Queen's body from sensors. The robot paused, its scanners confused. Calder pulled Lyra back behind the boulder. Good, he whispered. It's working. Lyra clutched his arm tightly. Do you think she can fight if she wakes? Calder checked the stabilizer lines again. The Queen's breathing had steadied. If she wakes fully, she can defend herself. But we need to give her the chance to recover first. The hunters were not easy to fool. They split into groups, moving in patterns that covered every path through the valley. Calder signaled Lyra to drop small reflective shards behind them. Light bounced off the metal, creating illusions of movement and hiding their real location. The hunter's sensors flickered, unable to track them accurately. One of the hunter drones spotted movement and moved closer. Calder grabbed Lyra and ducked, rolling behind a large boulder. The drone's scanner swept over them but found nothing. Calder's heart pounded, but he stayed calm. Humans were good at staying calm under pressure. His experience as a veteran told him panic would only make things worse. The mother dragon stirred slightly. Her wings twitched and her head lifted weakly. Calder felt relief. She could sense the danger, even unconscious, and her instincts would help protect her if the hunters advanced too far. Lyra whispered, "She's waking." Calder nodded. "Good. That means she still has strength. Stay behind me." The hunters split further, moving closer to the Dragon Queen. Calder quickly grabbed wires and small power cells, adjusting the stabilizers to send a tiny pulse through her scales. The faint glow from the burns faded slightly, cooling her skin. She twitched again, stronger this time. Calder felt a surge of hope. Suddenly, a scout drone moved directly toward them. Calder grabbed a rock and tossed it with precise force. The drone's sensors focused on the noise, giving them a few precious seconds. Lyra gasped. "You really can do everything." Calder whispered, "No. But humans survive by thinking, improvising, and using what they have. Watch me and learn." He worked quickly, adding a small reflective panel to create another false heat signature. The drone scanned it, then turned away. The hunters were cautious but frustrated. Calder's human tricks were confusing them, and that confusion gave the Dragon Queen more time to regain strength. Her eyes finally opened fully, glowing softly with the faint warmth of life. She sniffed the air, sensing the hunters, then focused on Calder and Lyra. The little dragon girl smiled in relief. "Mama," she whispered. The queen raised her massive head, then exhaled a soft, controlled flame, not enough to attack but enough to make the hunters wary. Calder stood back slightly. "She's aware now. That's enough for them to hesitate." The hunters paused, unsure of how to proceed. The Dragon Queen's strength was obvious now, even though she was still weak. Calder motioned for Lyra to stay behind him. "They won't attack blindly. That's our chance." Using small human tricks, improvised traps, and the Queen's partial awareness, they maneuvered the hunters into confusion. The drones misread their locations, the patrols hesitated, and Calder's quick thinking kept them safe. The hunters realized they could not risk a direct approach without more information. Slowly they retreated, leaving the valley floor quiet once more. Lyra hugged her mother's leg tightly. "You did it," she whispered to Calder. He shook his head, brushing the sweat from his forehead. "No. You both did it. The Queen's instincts, your courage and quick thinking, they all helped. I just guided." The mother dragon fully opened her eyes now, focusing on Calder. She did not speak, but her gaze was deep and intelligent. Calder felt her gratitude without words. She understood he had risked himself when others would have run. Lyra looked at him with awe. "You're our hero," she said softly. Calder smiled faintly. "I'm just a human who keeps promises." The hunters had returned, but for now the Dragon Queen was alive, and Calder had proven that even a human, small and underestimated, could change the outcome of events that seemed hopeless. The valley was safe, but only for a little while. The real challenge was just beginning. Together, Calder, Lyra, and the slowly recovering Queen prepared for what would come next, knowing that courage, intelligence, and human ingenuity could outmatch even the most dangerous hunters. The valley was tense. Calder stood beside the slowly waking Dragon Queen while Lyra clung to his leg, trembling but determined. The distant hum of returning hunters grew louder, echoing off the rocky cliffs. Calder's hands were steady but his mind raced. Every second counted. The Queen's strength was returning, but she was still weak. If the hunters attacked now, they could overwhelm her. Lyra looked up at him. "What do we do?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Calder crouched and put a hand on her shoulder. "We defend her. We buy her time. Humans survive by thinking fast and acting faster. Stay close to me and follow my lead." He grabbed small scraps of metal and energy devices from his kit. These were simple human tools, nothing like the hunters' advanced weapons, but humans had a gift for using simple things cleverly. Calder set them along the valley floor, creating low hums and flickering lights that would confuse the hunters' sensors. Lyra watched wide-eyed. "You can do this?" Calder nodded. "We have to. She's counting on us." The hunters landed in the valley, their ships dark and angular, scanning the ground with precise beams. Calder signaled Lyra to duck behind a boulder. He stayed close to the Queen, adjusting the stabilizers he had set up overnight. Her scales were warming again, showing signs of life, but she was still too weak to fight fully. Suddenly, a drone moved toward the Queen. Calder grabbed a reflective panel from his kit and angled it at the sun. The beam flashed directly into the drone's sensors. It paused, scanning confused. Calder grabbed Lyra and ducked behind a larger rock. "They're too close," Lyra whispered. "Not for long," Calder replied. "Watch and learn." He pulled a small, improvised smoke device from his pack and threw it near the approaching patrol. Thick smoke curled upward, hiding their exact location. The hunter's sensors bounced and blinked, unable to distinguish friend from false signals. Calder adjusted his traps quickly, creating multiple distractions with mirrors, heat pads, and low-frequency hums. The queen stirred more strongly. Her wings twitched and her head lifted. She let out a soft roar, not enough to attack but enough to signal she was aware. The hunters hesitated, seeing her partial awakening. Lyra cheered quietly. "Mama's back." Calder whispered, "Good. Now she can help defend herself." He motioned for Lyra to stay behind him. "We have to use her power carefully. She's strong but still recovering." A drone moved too close. Calder dashed forward, kicking up dirt and rocks to create another false heat signature. The drone adjusted its scan, moving away from the queen's true location. Calder used the distraction to check the stabilizers. They were holding, but the queen needed more energy to fully awaken. He pulled small power cells from his pack, connecting them carefully to her wings and chest. The faint blue burns glowed, then faded slightly as the energy stabilized her. She twitched, then lifted her head fully. Her eyes glowed with a fierce light, and her nostrils flared. She could feel the hunters now, smell their intent. Lyra clung to Calder's leg. "Is she going to fight?" "Yes," he said quietly. "But she will need our help to buy time." The hunters advanced. Calder signaled for Lyra to stay low and safe. He threw small energy pulses that created sparks and lights across the valley. The hunters hesitated, unsure where the queen truly was. Calder's human tricks slowed their advance just enough. The dragon queen stretched her wings, careful but deliberate. A wave of heat rolled across the valley floor. It wasn't a full attack yet, but the hunters felt it. Their sensors faltered under the sudden rise in temperature, and they slowed, unsure how to proceed. Calder motioned for Lyra to watch carefully. "This is how humans survive," he whispered. "By acting smart, fast, and using what you have. Courage isn't always about strength. Sometimes it's about thinking faster than the enemy." The hunters, seeing an apparently weak dragon now awake and unpredictable, hesitated. Calder continued his work, adjusting stabilizers and setting small traps. Each false signal, each light reflection, confused them further. The queen took a few cautious steps, her claws touching the ground, wings rising slightly. She was regaining control. Finally, one of the hunter drones moved too close, and the queen exhaled a controlled blast of flame. It wasn't enough to destroy the drone, but it forced the hunters to retreat temporarily. Calder and Lyra stayed low, watching the effect. The hunters were surprised. They had expected an easy target, but the queen, aided by a clever human, had turned the valley into a trap. Lyra cheered softly. "We did it. Mama did it." Calder shook his head, smiling faintly. "No. We all did it. Courage, brains, and timing. That's how we survive. Humans are clever, but dragons are strong. Together we're unstoppable." The hunters retreated further, unsure whether to advance or leave. The queen's breathing steadied, and her eyes remained fixed on Calder. She understood his actions, his courage, and his willingness to risk himself for her life. Lyra ran to her mother, hugging her claws tightly. Calder stepped back, watching quietly. His human ingenuity and the queen's instinctive power had combined perfectly. The hunters had underestimated them. They had thought the human was weak, the dragon helpless, but together they were stronger than any enemy in the valley. As the sun rose higher, the valley was quiet once more. Calder checked the stabilizers one last time. The queen was stable, alert, and ready to defend if needed. Lyra beamed at him. "You really kept your promise," she said softly. Calder smiled faintly. "I told you I would. Bravery isn't loud or flashy. It's quiet, consistent, and smart. That's how humans survive. That's how we protect those who need us." The dragon queen moved closer to Calder, her eyes glowing with respect and awareness. The valley, once full of danger, had become a place of quiet victory. For now the hunters were gone and life had a chance to continue. But Calder knew this was only the beginning. More dangers would come, more enemies would arrive, and the real test of courage and human ingenuity was still ahead. For now, though, fire and courage had won the day. And the little dragon girl, watching her mother rise with trust and strength, knew they had a human who would never abandon them. The valley was calm now. The hunters had retreated, leaving only distant echoes of their engines in the sky. The Dragon Queen lay fully awake, her eyes glowing with a soft warmth as she surveyed the valley and the human who had saved her. Calder stood nearby, checking the stabilizers one last time. Lyra ran around them, her small claws leaving prints in the dust, laughing softly as her mother nuzzled her. Calder looked at the queen, noting the scars still visible on her scales. She had survived because of human ingenuity, quick thinking, and courage. Not weapons, not armies, not advanced technology, just a human who refused to give up. The Dragon Queen rose fully, stretching her massive wings. Her body gleamed in the morning sun, strong and alive once again. She approached Calder slowly, her movements deliberate yet graceful. Calder stepped back slightly, uncertain how such a powerful creature would show gratitude. She lowered her head until her glowing eyes were level with his. Calder could feel the intelligence in her gaze, the understanding that he had risked his life when no one else would. The other aliens in the valley watched from a distance, murmuring among themselves. They had doubted humans, but now they could see the quiet power of courage and wisdom. Lyra clambered onto her mother's side. "Mama, he saved you." "He stayed when everyone else ran," she said, her voice full of pride and wonder. The queen looked at Calder again and let out a low, rumbling sound. It was not a roar or a threat, it was respect. Calder smiled faintly. He had never sought recognition. Humans often acted quietly, doing what needed to be done without expectation of praise. And this was the reward, acknowledgement from those who could understand its value. Calder glanced at Lyra. "She's strong now," he said. "But she'll need time to fully heal. I'll stay nearby to help if she needs me." Lyra beamed. "You really mean that?" "Of course," Calder replied. "I promised I wouldn't let anything happen to you or your mother." The other aliens began to approach cautiously. They whispered among themselves, clearly surprised at what a single human could do. One of the older aliens stepped forward. You saved her?" he asked quietly, disbelief in his voice. Calder nodded. "I didn't do it alone. She fought too. But yes, I made sure she survived." The elder alien looked down, almost ashamed. "We doubted humans," he admitted. "We thought you were weak. But you," he trailed off, shaking his head. "You have honor. Quiet but real." Calder shrugged slightly. Humans rarely needed acknowledgement, but he understood the importance of respect in these situations. "Humans survive in ways that aren't always obvious," he said. "We think, plan, and act when it matters. That's our edge." The Dragon Queen stepped closer to him, nudging him gently with her massive snout. Calder stood still, feeling the power and trust in her gesture. Lyra ran between them, giggling. "He's ours," she declared. "He's our brave human." The queen lowered her head again, brushing Calder's shoulder lightly with her scales. It was a gesture of trust, respect, and acknowledgement. Calder exhaled quietly. He had never expected such recognition from a being so ancient and powerful. But he had acted as humans often did, steadily, bravely, without fanfare, and it had earned him this moment. Over the next hours, Calder helped stabilize the queen fully, repairing minor injuries and reinforcing his improvised devices. The hunters were gone for now, but the valley needed protection. Calder set up simple warning systems, small human tricks that would alert them to any return. The Dragon Queen observed, clearly impressed by his intelligence and resourcefulness. Lyra stayed close, constantly talking to Calder and watching his every move. "You really know everything," she said. "I know enough to keep you safe," Calder replied. "Sometimes that's all that matters." The valley became peaceful. The other aliens slowly approached, bringing supplies and expressing quiet admiration for Calder. They had learned something important. Strength is not always measured in size or weapons. Humans had an edge that few could see until it was too late. It was intelligence, courage, and quiet honor. The Dragon Queen finally spread her wings, fully awake and aware. She turned to Calder. Though she could not speak in human words, her gaze and body language conveyed gratitude and respect. Calder bowed slightly, a small human gesture, acknowledging her majesty and their shared victory. Lyra climbed onto a nearby rock, looking at Calder and her mother. "You're part of our family now," she said proudly. Calder smiled faintly, feeling the warmth of her words. Humans often acted quietly without expectation, but the bonds formed through trust and bravery were powerful. As the sun began to set, painting the valley in shades of gold and red, Calder sat with Lyra and watched the queen rest. The valley was safe. The hunters had been driven off. And humanity had earned quiet honor on a distant world, without weapons, without armies, simply through courage, intelligence, and steadfast heart. Calder realized something important. The galaxy would judge humans by many things: strength, technology, numbers, but the real measure was quiet honor. Acting when others would flee, protecting those in need, and using one's mind and heart to face impossible odds. That was humanity's edge. The Queen's low rumble echoed softly across the valley, a sound of recognition and gratitude. Lyra leaned against Calder. "You did it," she whispered. Calder looked at her, then at the Dragon Queen. "We did it," he corrected. "Together." The stars began to appear overhead, twinkling in the darkening sky. The valley was peaceful, and the bond between human, dragon, and dragonchild was strong. Calder knew challenges would come again, but he also knew the lesson had been made clear. Humans could survive, protect, and honor in ways that no one expected. The little dragon girl yawned and curled up near her mother. Calder adjusted the stabilizers one last time and stood, looking at the horizon. Quietly, without anyone shouting or celebrating, humanity had proven its edge. In the end, the hunters would remember the human who defied them, but the galaxy would remember much more. Humans were clever, courageous, and honorable, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Calder's quiet actions had saved a dragon queen, protected a child, and earned humanity a place of respect among species that had once doubted them. And that, he thought, was enough.